This is the Alumni Connections Project. We all know Randolph,
you still gotta rep. A-Philip Randolph Campus High School. But this is not a test, you should say it with your chest. Be proud of your origin, and if you are proud, support it then. Stronger together through unity, better together, let's build the community. Randolph isn't a school or a building, it's a legacy. It's not in your past, it's your identity. So show some pride. Alumni Connections is sponsored and brought to you by SBI, CCPI, soundbusiness.org, soundbusiness.org. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with the journey doesn't end. This is the Alumni Connections Project. This is the Alumni Connections Project. A-Philip Randolph, A-Philip Randolph.
I have Evan Johnson here. So excited to get into today's show. In addition to being a fantastic human being, somebody who I remember coming into the program as a drummer, being taught in the church. He'll correct me if I got any of that wrong, but somebody who came into the program that was a pretty interesting person in their own right before they ever joined SBI, and then came in and did his thing with sound business and has gone out and gotten a great education and is here today to talk to us not only about what he's done with his education, but what he is bringing back to A. Randolph Campus High School and soundbusiness.org. Really glad to have Evan Johnson on the show. Thanks, Evan, for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
So, Evan, let's get right into it. Where are you right now? What are you doing, both professionally and with sound business?
Absolutely. So professionally, I'm now at Peloton. They are the interactive at-home workout company. So I'm on the tech recruiting team. And right now, I specifically source out new talent on our software engineering team. So iOS, software engineers and tests, Android. And essentially, I'm coming back now to CCPI to give back all my time and get back to an organization that helped build me up. I wouldn't have gotten to Peloton if it wasn't for CCPI. So that's what I'm doing now.
That's amazing. So talk to us a little bit about the job that you have. I don't want to go too deep into it, but I do want to just sort of get into it. So you talked about bringing people in for what exactly?
For engineering jobs. So essentially to work on our iOS apps. A lot of our stuff is at home and it's mobile, right? So we just need a lot of people to come in and work on the tech side. And that's where I wanted to give my contribution to Peloton.
So that's amazing. And I think that it's incredible, not only because it's a pretty cool job. I'm pretty impressed. But I think, you know, for folks that are coming out of Randolph and coming out of college, this is an excellent opportunity. Here's somebody that's an alumni, take advantage of them. You know, Evan very well might be your plug into an organization, right? So I think that's incredible. And sort of, we're going to come back to this, but you were plugged into the organization by an alumni. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
So who sort of opened the door and got you into the organization?
For me, it was actually Kamar. I know he's done an interview already, but he actually pulled me in because I was, so how it was all set up was I was supposed to go to a program called SEO. And it was students' educational opportunities. And essentially what they did was they brought kids around like different colleges and things like that, did college tours. But I wanted something that was really known to Randolph students and something that I could really bring home and be like, you know, I actually am involved in. And SBI was that for me. And Kamar essentially explained that whole point to me. And he explained that even if I didn't want to be on the then STEP team, I could do other things to give back. Like,
you talk about pulling you into SBI and the school. Yeah. All right. So
Yes,
let me, because I was talking about the job, because I thought Jeremy pulled you into Peloton, right? All right. So we'll get into that
yes.
story. Look, so we'll rewind back. Let's
Yeah.
push the rewind button back here. So talk to us even before you got into A. Philip Randolph, right? So where were you living, and where were you going to junior high, and how did Randolph come into the picture?
Absolutely. So I was living in Riverdale. It's a small neighborhood in North Bronx of New York. And essentially, I was living there. I'd been in Catholic schools pretty much most of my life. That's most of my background. My religious background is Roman Catholic. And essentially, I wanted to go to a high school with more of my own. I grew up in a predominantly Irish and Italian area. So I didn't see many African Americans around my community and doing the things that I like to do. And going to Randolph was essentially the school that stood out the most. That was doing the same things that I was doing and that had the same interests that I had. And that's what drew me into Randolph. So that's when I went over there.
All right, very cool. And then what was your first sort of opinion or sort of takeaway as you were exposed to the Randolph building? What did you sort of feel as you were going through the doors, first day of school, that sort of thing?
So it's funny because at that time they had scaffolding. And I was like, where am I headed to? But then when you get into the school, it was such a warming nature. The students, the faculty, the staff was very welcoming. And one of the first organizations I knew about Randolph was CCPI. So essentially, they were the main ones to kind of pull me in. And then it went to more specific people who did that. But yeah, it was just a warming, welcoming nature.
I'm so sorry. I literally had to put out a
No
fire.
worries. No, no worries. You're good.
So I'm like, what's going on? My daughter's like, it's on fire. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's on fire. What are you talking? The oven was on fire. So it was no big deal. We put some salt on. It's done now. Sorry about that.
Bless
So let me get back into this. So I know I missed a little bit of the last piece, but if you'll catch me up and forgive me. So as you're coming into the building, so I can provide the right questions and feedback here. As you're coming into the building, I know they've got the scaffolding on the building now too. Which have you seen the building lately? No, everything you've been doing has been low, right?
Yeah. I haven't been around. What's going on over there?
All right, so it's crazy with the building. So you remember you came into the building at scaffolding came down, scaffolding's up again, and it's been up for the last couple years. It's crazy. Endless construction. They didn't do what they needed to do, I guess, the last time. So now there's construction again, which brings us, to that. We'll put a pin in this and come back to it. But sustainability and making sure you're doing things that maintain an organization. So you're coming into the building, and what was the feeling and what was the first year like?
For me, the first year was mixed emotions. I felt welcomed a lot by my peers. I did felt welcomed by some of my peers, and because we had the similar interests. We were in the same program. So at the time, Randolph had 3 different programs: engineering, humanities, and medical. And I came into the medical program. And it was the first time for me where I was entering an exact program that had the same inline education. Everybody was on that same focus. And that was great. That did a lot for me. But on the educator side, I didn't feel as connected. And I wanted more of a role model and a mentorship during high school, because those are your formative years. In 4 years, you're going off to college, and that's really no time. So I was seeking that during my first year, and luckily enough, I was able to receive that through Thompson. But
okay,
that was kind of my first year win.
So how did you find Thompson? I know you have an interesting story around this.
Right, right. So I actually found Thompson first through Kumar. Kumar told me about the program, and he told me because he had a friend in the program that was the other program that was trying to recruit me. And he told me, we have this program here and we do all this great stuff. And I said, yeah, I'm gonna check it out. And my big thing was at the time, my mom did not want me in any areas after 6 o'clock. It didn't matter if it involved school or anything. It was after school, and my mom's like, you got to make sure that it's something that's going to benefit you. And I said, I know, I'm going to
And
do
your
my
parents were
research.
your parents were pretty active in your life, right? I mean, and I don't know if they still are, but I know at that
Mhm.
time is the story that I'm thinking of with you playing drums in church. Is that accurate? And you were
That
pretty
is
active.
accurate. That definitely is accurate. So my mom had me in church just as a participant when I was an altar boy between the ages of 5 to 10. And then from 10 to 20, I literally played drums at my dad's church, which was a Baptist church in the Bronx.
Very cool. Yeah, and we share that a little bit. My grandparents were Baptist Christians. My father, by extension. So when we go back home to Missouri, yeah, I was in the
Oh, wow.
choir. I'm not, I'm not a religious guy. I don't, my wife is Catholic. We're bringing kids to Catholic school, but it's not organized religion. It isn't my everyday, but I have that background. So
I hear
I
you.
felt when you were telling me about it when you were going to school, I was like, I, I feel, I understand. So you were playing drums.
I hear you. I'm the same way.
You brought that talent to the school, which was huge. And I think that's one of those things where, even if you don't necessarily love everything about church, the community building, the
Yeah.
talent, the sharing of resources, these are things that the church should be about, and they definitely were in some cases for you, which I thought was amazing. Um, so talk to us about how you found, you know, um, beyond the first year, you're going into sophomore year. What's going on with mentorship and SBI, and what are you digging about Randolph? What aren't you necessarily digging? And were you doing anything over the summers?
Totally, totally. So, essentially, after my freshman year, over that whole summer, I kind of was doing my research in the CCPI, but at the same time, I was trying to get a lot of my education on par because at the time, I was in an advanced math class. I was doing geometry as a freshman. Typically, you do algebra one, and essentially, I was falling behind a bit. So, I was so focused on my academics that I didn't really have time to really focus on the social aspects and really get into it. And once that was done, that was like the first half of my summer. That's when I went back into the research of CCPI. And it was a program I really wanted to be a part of. I think when I came into Randolph, I was so enamored by the fact that kids could be aligned by education, which I think was huge to me. And that's what my parents always teach me. But I didn't realize how important the component of being matched educationally and socially could be, and how impactful that could be on someone's life. And CCPI did that more. They brought in more of the social aspect, as you talk about from the church, the community, the caring, the sharing, the networking, all that comes essentially together. And that's what CCPI had. And essentially, when I went to my sophomore year, that's what I knew I wanted. Because at that time, I had the academics on lock, but I wanted to make sure that I started building that network of people that I could trust and that I could learn from, most importantly, to get to my next stage in life. So that's
Very
how I led
cool.
into that year.
So junior year, were you doing anything like SAT prep or anything junior year?
I was. I don't know if you remember, but Randolph did like a 3 month Kaplan collab where like essentially Kaplan taught a couple of
Were you
us.
doing that through
Um,
SBI, or was that Randolph? They had put it together then.
that was Randolph first.
Okay.
That was Randolph. They put it together first. And then CCPI did something for the remainder of my year,
Okay.
which I took, which was great. That was really what led me to a good score. I ended up scoring a 1950 on my SET out of 2400. So that was pretty strong at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was very happy, very pleased with the results. The tutoring was great that we had. It was after school twice a week, between I think it was like 3 o'clock to 5, and it was great, man. It was a great time where we could just learn and share with each other.
So who are some of your favorite teachers and some of the, I know you said you were focusing more on academics, and then you got involved in SBI. But what was some of your now you got 3 years deep into Randolph. What were you saying? Some of your favorite spots, some of your favorite classrooms, teachers that you remember that really shaped and influenced you?
Yes, sir. Some of my favorite classes were definitely the English classes. Mr. Bell, a lot of people know him. Mr. Bell, he's an English teacher. He was great. Miss Farber was a hilarious jokester. But one of the most impactful teachers I had was actually Mr. Rivera, Victor Rivera. He taught AP US history for me. And he taught this class in my first half of my junior year. It was the hardest class to date that I've ever taken. And I've been in grad school, and to this day, that's the hardest class I've ever
Wow.
taken. Yeah. And one of the main reasons was because he really took no prisoners in the sense that he didn't baby you in that class. He taught us like college students. He treated us like college students. And at that time, we were only in our junior year of high school. And he pushed the expectations on us extremely hard. And I think if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have even gone to grad school, because he was the one who gave me a taste of hard work will get you this result. If you put in the work, if you put in the dedication, you will get what you want. But it's going to take patience.
What was the reward after that? Because I know a lot of kids could go through a hard class and say, it was just unnecessarily hard. Like that just wasn't necessary,
Yes,
or that wasn't something that, I would have rather not had that experience. What made you sort of take that in? And I can imagine that there was probably some of those folks in that same class with you.
Yeah.
So what was different about your experience, or how you took it? What was the reward for you? How do you feel it benefited you?
Excellent question. It kind of ties in with my parents. So my parents, as I told you, were very close with me, and they were very real with me. And around junior year, when I was looking in the colleges, one of the main things that they told me was, you're smart, you can get into a good school, but do not put yourself in debt. And once again, with Mr. Rivera, he was teaching an AP class. So if you did well in this class, then you essentially got college credit. And i.e., if you get college credit, you don't have to pay for that class when you get to college. So I saved probably about $900 to $1,000 in my overall college tuition, because I took that class and because I did well in that class. So that's what it did for me. I mean, it saved me money. It gave me an opportunity to be ahead of the competition by the time I got to college. And at the same point, it taught me things about just life and work ethic that I still use to this day.
It's such a hard thing. And again, there's another thing I think I want to put a pin in, to sort of come back to. And I know we talked about before the call, things that you want, people to take away in terms of the importance of continuing education and the importance of giving back. But there's something really that drives me in connecting what a student is doing in school now, whether they're in high school or college, but particularly in high school, because that's that moment where we have that opportunity, especially with a young person, where the results that they drive can save them money, not only save them money, but make them money, which it took me a long time to learn it, but saving money and making money, saving money is better than making money, because making money doesn't necessarily mean that you're saving it. To make money to save money. But if you're not saving it, you can be making money and be poor.
That's right.
Right.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And the fact that you were able to connect at a relatively young age that something that you were doing in the classroom was going to pay dividends, I think that's amazing. I think that's looking back on it. I don't know if you look at it as super mature, but I think it's something that I would like ideally for every high school student, and in your work and touching students and working with Nico and working with Genesis, when they're, engaging with high school students that are currently in the program, if you're able to get one little bit of that across to somebody, goal achieved, right? You're able to connect the work they're doing to the future results. It's an amazing thing. All right, so talk to me about. So you got a good score on your SAT. You're getting some great leg up in terms of your AP credit, that sort of thing. What's going on senior year? What schools are you thinking about? What schools did you apply to? What's going on senior year?
Absolutely. So senior year was the year where the maturity really had to come in. For me, senior year was a hard one because I, even to this day, I want the best bang for my buck. And college is an investment in many ways. That's academically, that's your time, that's financially. It is an investment, and that was a lesson that I was luckily able to learn early. So in senior year, I kept on hearing, you can go to this school because of your grades. You can go to this school. And when I'm looking at the bills of some of these schools, it's
So in senior year,
astronomical.
I kept
Like
on
it's crazy.
hearing,
And then after that, when you consider the fact of how much time you're going to be away from your family, because I was big on family. So I incorporated all these things, and I needed to weigh the pros and cons of what this would be worth, what the next step of college would be worth. And senior year, that's all I did in the beginning of it. And I had to make some tough choices. When I was applying, I applied to a bunch of different schools, probably about the six that I remember. I applied to Howard, I applied to NYU, Hunter, Siena College, Manhattan College, and Albright. Those were the six that I really wanted to go to. Howard accepted me. They gave me pretty much half tuition scholarship, but I still had to come out of pocket with about, I want to say 17,500. So that like
Per
1 7
per year.
yeah, 17,000 per year.
Yeah.
And now that adds up. When you get out of school and you're looking for a job, unless you know you got a job out, that's a hefty bill you got. So I
Do you
said
know?
no
Do
to
you know the
Howard.
amount that we recommend or we're recommending? I don't know what Thompson's recommending now, but
Mhm.
the amount that we were recommending for you to be taking out in loans maximum per year.
No, what was it? What is it?
So I remember what we usually focused on was about 7,000 was like max. So try to get in some place where, while we'd usually recommend like a competitive liberal arts private school that has the money to pay for
Right.
a Black, Brown, Asian
There you
student
go. There you go.
from
Diversity.
a different background coming on to
Yeah.
campus. We're going to pay for that education, especially with the good grades and all that. And applying to enough places where you can come, put one bid against another and say, hey, this school is giving me this. So you applied to a bunch of city schools. So what was, obviously Howard's not in the city, but you applied to a bunch that were in the city. Do you know why you were applying to mostly city schools?
Yes. So it had a lot to do, once again, with the financial component, but with my parents. When you had asked me earlier, like, what did I feel similar, or what did I feel connected with the program? A lot of my friends, unfortunately, where I had the disconnect was I came from a two-parent home, and also came from a middle class
Yeah.
working home, which when you're in middle class in America, it's very tough to get any type of aid. That doesn't really matter what race you are. It's very tight to get aid because you're not on the complete end of the spectrum where you could buy a new library, and you're not on the spectrum where you can't afford food. So I was stuck in this middle ground, and a lot of schools just the scholarships weren't there because on paper it looked like my parents could afford it, and I had good grades still, but those bills just weren't going to cut it. And I didn't want to put myself in debt. I didn't want to put my parents in debt. So city schools were the main go-to that I had to look at. And that's why I made my decision. And it's funny you mentioned that because I was waiting for a moment like this where I could say, Thompson and I, we clashed on this. We
Yeah.
really did. But because he boosts, go away, get your experience, do what you got to do. And it was a tough decision. But when I explained to him why I made that decision, he understood it. And he understood that time I was a hard worker and say, you know what? I have faith you'll make out of whatever you got to do. And he was right. He was right.
Let me say this because I think that it's hard. And one of the reasons I started this project we've talked about it on these shows before, is that we want to reach out to folks that, while there's advice provided, we go by the statistics. I've had City College graduates on the show. So it's not saying that you can't graduate from City College when I tell you that only 6% of people that go to City College across the street from Maple at Randolph graduate. That's the statistics.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's right.
It's not that I don't want you to go to City College, because I think that it's a horrible mess of a school. I just know what the statistics are. So we're going to try to point you in the right direction. And we know that
for sure,
when you're living at home and trying to go to school, it gets more difficult. It gets more challenging. We know that maturity comes with living and having experience on your own. So that's where we're going to push kids to. Not to say that it's the only experience, not to say that even college is the right thing for every single person, which,
right.
we start having that debate too. We just talk about, degree versus no degree, skills versus not many marketable skills. So, what's going to give you a better chance? While I got my microphone going, let's shout out Maya Garcia. It's so good to see you, Evan. Thanks for it.
Good to see you, Maya. Good to see you.
Packers also giving you a shout out.
How you doing, Packers? What's going on?
All right, so talk to us about what in the end. So you had a couple schools. You're measuring the financials. Why did Hunter become the one?
So Hunter became the one for me because I knew I wanted to go into psychology. After I left high school, I'd taken a College Now class. Actually, while I was at Randolph, I had that luxury to do that, and I did well in it. And I was always interested in the human mind, just why we do what we do and why we learn what we learn. And it was always an interest to me. So Hunter had the strongest program. Hunter also needed the strongest grades, and I was lucky enough to have those. I was lucky enough to also get scholarships at Hunter, and that was just a school to go to. It was the best school that I could get the best investment for, both academically and fiscally. So it was the way to go.
That's awesome. Do you know what your package ended up? Do you know how much your loans were per year?
I had no loans. I had no loans at all.
That's amazing.
Yeah, if you want me to get into it, I believe tuition was about $6,000 per semester. I had a scholarship that paid me $4,000 every semester.
Is Hunter CUNY?
Hunter is a CUNY, yeah.
Okay, Hunter is CUNY, because I know it's elite. I mean, in terms of schools up there. So I don't in my head associate it with CUNY, but it's a city school. And when you say $6,000 for tuition, that's why you apply to a CUNY or a SUNY, because the tuition is a lot lower. So you were able to not take out any loans, which is ideal. That's amazing. Because you also have situations where, financial package was great the first year, and then the school changes it up for second, third, and fourth year, and then you got a master's education, so that they get you again.
That's right.
So you chose Hunter. So talk to us about senior year. You graduated in Randolph. I'll give you a nice congratulations on that once again, right? That's a big deal, a big achievement.
Thank you.
You graduated Randolph, and then what did you do that senior year? And as you were getting into Hunter College, did they have a summer program? What was that experience like?
Absolutely. So graduated Randolph. Essentially, I was kind of just hanging out that summer, just getting ready for school. I met all the requirements. Like I said, I had some classes where I was advanced. So my freshman year was pretty light. I was going into a freshman year with only probably two classes, two early morning classes my first semester. And that was sociology and Psych 201. I remember that's what it was. And I was going into it excited, but I was a bit sad, to be very honest, because it was very painful that summer to see a lot of friends packing up and going, not just because of the fact that they were leaving, but, it kind of hurts when you see a lot of people going to the traditional pathway, right? Like, That's the traditional path. You go to high school and then you go away to college, and, you get your refrigerator, you get all that cool stuff. And that wasn't my experience. My experience was after graduation day, I went home and hung out and got ready to go to some place strictly for really the education. So it it
And
matured me faster.
I don't want to spoil the story, but did you stay?
Sure.
Obviously, you were living at home that first year. I'd imagine. Did that change at any point? Did you leave home?
I did not.
So
So I
you're there.
lived at home all through college.
So that's one of the challenges, right? That's one of the challenges that we talk about because you're dealing with at home stuff, and that can be good, that can be bad. It's a mixed bag. It can be a big added challenge amidst the already interesting challenges that go
Talk
along
on it,
with
Cameron.
college education. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you're right. You're
All
right.
right. So talk to us. So you're living at home. You're starting first year. You're dealing with sort of fear of missing out, a little bit of FOMO going on as people
Yes.
are going away. So talk to us about what that experience is. You're in their freshman year in college. Obviously, you're staying in touch with friends.
So yeah, so after that summer when I got into college, I was pretty much alone for the first semester. I didn't really know many people. I made some friends, but it was just a new experience for me. And then it wasn't until my second half of my freshman year where I started seeing people who also went to Randolph. They weren't in CCPI, but we knew each other. We ran into each other. I remember it was our history class.
That's great.
And we ran into each other and we ended up being friends and creating a friend group just off of the fact that we came from Randolph. And it was great. It was really great all through
You're
college.
touching my heart now with the alumni story.
It was cool, man. It was cool to just bond with those people, see them again. And essentially what changed for me in college socially was the person I ended up playing the drums for, like professionally, the girl, she had actually had a cousin that went to Hunter. And we met because essentially that's
I
how
love
spent
how
my
you
time.
describe the person that you play drums as the girl. Talk to us about who
Yeah.
you play drums for and where that connection came from.
Absolutely. So I guess that kind of goes into the friend thing. I would hang out in the music rooms a lot. In between classes or like before I went home, I would go to the music rooms that Hunter had and I would just jam out on drums or I play piano if I had time. And one day I had came into one of the drumming sessions and there was a shortage on rooms. And the girl her name was Shayna. She came into one of the drum rooms one time with a guitarist and she was like, hey, can we jam in here? There's not many rooms. Like, can we just share this room, whatever? I was like, cool, do your thing. And I was playing this groove, just kind of in my own head. And then the guitarist picked it up. Shayna started singing and we had a little thing going. So
Musician magic jam session.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So it was that was literally the start of how I entered into the professional world of music for a while. And then I played for her for 3 years. I toured in Canada. I toured across the Eastern Coast, and that was amazing. But that's a whole other
Now I
portion
know
of
why
life.
you and Jeremy are good buds because you guys had some parallels going on in your
For sure.
stories. Very cool. All right, so talk to us. So did that happen freshman year at Hunter?
That happened my second semester freshman year. Yes.
All right, so that starts popping off freshman year. So now you got the cultural thing. I can't imagine that was bad for your social life. I imagine
No, that was
that helped improve things.
yes.
All right. So talk to us about the journey through sophomore and junior year at Hunter.
Yes. So in my sophomore year, I was debating what major I wanted to go into. So I was good at math at the time, and I was debating whether I wanted to stay in psych or economics. But I ended up going full time into psychology because of what I was doing at the time. So in my sophomore year, by the time I got into the beginning of it, I had gotten really heavily into music actually. And probably my 15th showing with Shayna was when I actually got approached by somebody at Atlantic Records. His name was Jason Stiles, and he was an A&R there at the time. And he approached me and asked me if I wanted to do studio drumming, which is essentially you're a session drummer. So you're hired by the record company to just drum for anybody who doesn't have a band, any artist that needs someone on their song, whatever. And for 6 months, I was a session drummer at Atlantic Records, and I played for a European artist called Birdie. I don't know how many people know of her, but that was a really fun time. And that was kind of my sophomore year in a bunch. It was like, that's what determined me going into full-time psych, because it was laid back enough where I could still focus on my education, but still do my music thing.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's sort of interesting when I hear these stories about like sort of the dual, okay, I'm working on this professional degree, but I'm really having some fun and even some professional success with drumming. I just think in my head, like, would I not have made the decision at some point to be like, you know, screw this education thing, I'm going to go drum and be a musician? What made you or kept you driven to finish your degree and keep pursuing your education?
Honestly, it was my family, and by like my family, and not, I don't even mean my immediate family alone. By family, I also mean Thompson. I mean you. I mean people who have
That's awesome.
watched my story, who have watched me come up. Some students under me who I've mentored. And my big thing was, I didn't want to be selfish in my decisions. I didn't want to chase an industry that necessarily may not have a place for me in 2-3 years, and I'm just catching the quick thrill. I wanted something that I had longevity in, security in, and where I could actually make an impact. And I felt like music wouldn't give me that same thing. And there were a lot of things that I saw in the music scene that I didn't really agree with, and that I wasn't really comfortable with. And we see a lot of it coming out now, as far as like how women are treated in the industry and things like that. So it's finally coming to light, which is a great thing. But there were certain social aspects that I did like about the music industry. And in addition to not wanting to disappoint people, I said, let me just focus on this education. Music will always be there, always be my love, but focus on college right now.
That's amazing. Again, a lot of maturity there, and I'm sure it's going to play out well for you, because I mean, I think one of the things that, you know, we constantly harp on is, you know, the ability to, you know, all right, you're at this place in your life, and maybe you really like what you're doing, or you want to pivot a little bit, or you want to go a complete 180, you know, kind of thing. And you know, that education, that degree on the wall, the network that you build, you know, those are the things that allow you to do stuff. You know, you can be a musician that, you know, is dependent upon other people to make your finances right, to make your gigs right, to make your opportunities right, or you can be that person that can manage themselves, understand the financing, understand the business piece of it,
Right.
pivot to doing something where I can not only be an artist, but I can be an artist that goes into a school as a teacher and teach other people how to be artists, not only using music through, you know, performance and entertainment, but, you know, for therapy and for, you know, building something beyond, you know, just the pure entertainment facet of itself, which I think, you know, there's a lot of musicians out there that are probably unfulfilled because they want to do something more than what they're doing, but they feel stuck. I mean, I think that's a lot of people in life in general, right?
Right.
As we get to your junior year, I know you were doing the musician thing. Was that how you were spending your summers? And is that how you spent your summer between junior and senior year? And, you know, what were you thinking career-wise? I think you went right from college to graduate school, right? Or did you?
No, actually,
no.
no.
Okay. All right. So
So,
yeah, tell us what you were thinking and how that all kind of played out.
so you want me to do my junior, senior year, or just after
Yeah. So
college?
junior,
What
senior
happened?
year, and what you were thinking, and, you know, life is coming at you, job, you know, all that good
For
stuff.
sure.
How did that play
Right.
out?
For sure. Yeah. So for me, it was, music was in the corner also because it was a professional thing I was doing. So I was paying my way through college with a lot of the things I was doing in music. So it wasn't something I can necessarily just let go. But it was benefiting me once again. It had that double benefit where I could have that social aspect and have something paying for my education. So I essentially was in that till the end of college. But essentially, yeah, I did that heavily in my junior year. Towards the end of my junior year, though, was when I had to start thinking more seriously. That's when I officially declared my major. And I think once I put that paperwork in, that's when I was officially like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Like, this is where I find my true joy, as far as giving back and what I can sit every day and realize and be thankful for and happy for what I'm doing. And that was pretty much it from there. My junior and senior year, I lessened up my time in music and focused more on my after college and what I want to do, what plans I wanted to make. And by the time I hit senior year, I made the decision that I wanted to go to grad school for sure, but I did not, once again, want to be in debt.
So how did you think through those decisions? What was going through your head in terms of, what made it like, oh, I got to go to grad school? What was the driver there? And then how did you make that decision? Not only on how are you going to approach it, but what was it all about?
For sure, for sure. So I actually pledged to be an alpha. That's what I forgot to mention, the end of my sophomore year. And being in that community, being in that type of environment, you realize more what you come more into tune with your background, your environment, your understanding of why you're here and why your people are here. And for me, that did a lot of soul searching for me, as far as identifying what actually made me happy. And I feel like that's between sophomore and junior year, that's where my mindset was more. It was more about what was going to make me happy, not what was going to make me popular or was going to get me, around the quote unquote best people. It was what was actually going to make me impactful just for me being me. While doing that, while looking back at my education, I never slipped a beat on anything for school. I had late nights where I'd have shows till 3 a.m. and then have to wake up for a 7 o'clock class. But my grades never slipped. I was always an A, B student. So looking at that and actually having time to sit down and see that these results were still coming in, it just made me kind of counter, like, what do I actually want to do? What am I good at? And that's how I made that transition. That's when I was like, I need to go to grad school. I need to have that top job, and I'm going to work to do it. And I know it's going to take a lot of patience and work, but that was the encouragement behind it.
And what's the job that you're on the hunt for? What was the job that you were on the hunt for?
At that time, it was funny. I knew I wanted to work. At that time, I knew I wanted to work for a big corporation. At that time, there was no Peloton, did not exist. But I was a few companies drew my eye, which was Amazon at the time. I knew I wanted to work at a Google, at these types of like tech forerunner companies, where essentially they were just incorporating all of work-life balance and at the same time giving meaningful, impactful work to the community around them. And at first I thought that was going to be marketing for me, like consumer behavior, consumer psychology, knowing what people want. And it really drifted more so when I entered grad school, because up until grad school, that's what I thought I was going to do. But then it started to change with other life experiences.
Okay, very cool. So what did you end up doing between graduating, Hunter? Congratulations again, by the way. And then what did you do between graduating Hunter College and started graduate school?
Yes, sir. So I knew I wanted to get some work experience. I knew I wanted to save up some ducats, some shillings. So I got the first job. My mom actually sent me jobs literally the day after I graduated. She started emailing me stuff and saying, it's time to start working. And one of the jobs she
was being easy on you, because I know a lot of people start that process before graduation day.
You're right. You are right. So yeah, one of the jobs she sent to me was to be a psychotherapist for Children's Aid, which is a non-for-profit foster care agency. And at the time, back in college, my senior year, I did an internship at Lenox Hill where I earned one of my therapy licensings, and I got experience hands-on with therapy. So it was a job I was qualified for. It paid pretty well, being that I was still living at home. I was able to save, and I went into it. And that's what I did.
Let me just say that, because I know some people might, and I, me included, it's like, well, you got this trade-off. You go to school. If you can make it work, there is a real nice cost savings, because it is not cheap necessarily to live on campus or in the dorms. or
yeah.
in your own apartment. So being able to take advantage of a crib at home
Yes.
free is a really nice financial benefit. Definitely one
Yeah.
of the plus sides if you can make it work.
Yes, that's true. I made it work for as long as I could.
So talk to me about. So you got this job, and you what wage kids were you working with?
I was working with ages 4 through 12. 4 through
Wow.
12.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a pretty large age range. What was the
It
majority?
is. It is.
Was there a majority of kids that you were working with?
Yes. So the majority of kids I was working with was between 4 and I want to say 8. Typically, that's what a psychotherapist is supposed to deal with. The age range I had was so large was because unfortunately there aren't many psychotherapists in foster care and in non-for-profits, especially because it's kind of one of those roles where it takes a lot of personal stress. It's very demanding, and it's a lot you got to keep on for yourself, and you got to unload when you get home. When you get home, and I feel like a lot of people can't do that, and it's a stressful job. It's a stressful job.
I always, whenever somebody says, in our community in particular, like, like if you go into A. Philip Randolph and then you go to like graduates of A. Philip Randolph, there are, I feel like, and maybe it's just the folks that I'm talking to, but there is a nice percentage. I couldn't tell you what it is, but there's a nice percentage of people that go into social work. And I'm always kind of like, I mean, it's you're a hero. They're heroes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think about it, and people look at me, oh, you can do that. That is a job that would just it would wear me down. It would just
Yeah.
kill me. I mean, with kids in difficult situations, abusive situations, um, you know, that's a whole nightmare. I mean, I'd like to say that you have solvable problems, but the reality of the situation is that not every situation is black and white, nor is it something that
Yes.
can be easily solved or fixed. And you got people, and people are people. They do what people do.
Hmm.
The good, the bad, the ugly, the really freaking weird. Um,
Hmm.
and then this is a whole nother side, but folks that are dealing with grown folks, you got, women that are dealing with abusive men and vice versa. And then they're going back to them, even though, they've reached out for help and trying to go to sleep at night. I can imagine, for me, I just start thinking about that, and it makes, I have no trouble sleeping for the most part. And that kind of stuff, when you start getting into those kind of things and the, inequities in the world, that's the stuff that does keep me up at night. That's the stuff that worries me. That's the stuff that really messes with me. So when you're up close and touching it
Hmm.
and locked into it, I can imagine and sort of empathize with that situation, that it's really difficult. So I say all that to say, for somebody that might be watching it, that's what you're dealing with. And kudos to you for taking on the challenge. So how long did you do that for?
I did that for a year, an exact year. So August 2017 to August 2018.
Wow. And what did you take out of that? Like, what did you learn from that experience?
It was a very humbling experience, I think, for me. I took out a lot from it, actually. But it was so humbling because there is a total different world that a lot of us don't even realize is out here. And I'm talking about, like, as far as like when a lot of times we blame people for situations, like we'll say that a parent should never put a kid in a situation where they're in danger. But a lot of times, as you just mentioned, where there are women who are literally entrapped in a lot of relationships with abusive boyfriends, or the vice versa. And it was humbling seeing that take effect, and seeing all the domino effect of everything, especially in impoverished areas, and just with how the government essentially, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's funny because I would have to go to court a lot of times, and I'd have to write papers on why kids should not go with their parents, like the psychological trauma that they experience by just being in the room with some parents. and the politics that play such a deep part in why a child should be at an agency, and the money that agencies get for children being there, and for the amount of time they're there. It's crazy. There's so much background noise going on. It really discouraged me from the field, but it didn't discourage me from helping people. And like I said, it humbled me in that sense that whatever I went into, I was going to get into a job that gave back to someone. And that I would like to think that that's the path I'm going into now.
Without too deep into a political hole, maybe in just, and I know this is a tough thing to say, but is there, for that particular job and for that particular industry, what do you think is something that people can do, foster system, court legal wise, politically, what's something that we can all do to sort of help make that system better?
Well, I think one thing that may help, because everybody's in the media right now, I think one thing that may help is there's actually a very good Netflix special called The Case of, I don't know if it's Jose Fernandez, or it came out a while back, but it was this Netflix special on essentially this kid who was in a social care system out in California. And the system was so corrupt and so negligent in how they responded to a lot of things that it cost his child his life. And I feel like if we as a community can be more aware in our environments, and if we see something, we should truly speak up and say something. If you can talk to somebody, if you can reach out, please do it. Because, people are listening, and I think that if you speak loud enough, people are going to have to listen.
Is it the trials of Gabriel Fernandez? Is that it?
Yes. Yes, okay. That's it.
So there's on Netflix right now, the trials of Gabriel Fernandez, dark details of Gabriel's story came to light as shadowy source from inside the DCFS, Department of Child,
Services, you can just say.
Child Services, suggests that his case wasn't handled properly. Okay, so I'll definitely check that out. Very good. So we got, I think, when you talk about these things, if we're all moving in the right direction and educating ourselves in it, sort of what I would have put on if you hadn't offered something up, we can ask for sunlight laws and, open things up, because I think so many things and the frustration that you're dealing with, which, I've experienced not working for the DOE, but working in A. Philip Randolph Campus High School and seeing kind of the way the system worked, where you have admin and administration versus teachers, and teacher union versus sometimes almost, even though no one would say it, but almost at complete odds with the purpose of what they're in that building to do, which is to serve their customers, which are the students that walk through the front door. And sometimes that seems like almost the ultimate last thing that both the head of the teacher union in the school and the administration, just because of the things that they have to do to justify their position, their work, their job, to make sure that they can come and get a paycheck tomorrow. It's a very soul-sucking kind of environment.
For certain. Spot on.
Yeah. All right, so let's move into. All right, so we're getting into grad school. So what were you doing for work during grad school, and how did you apply and get into grad school, and walk us through that whole experience?
Absolutely. So I'll move kind of back in how I even found out about Peloton. So this is why you always keep good networking and good communication with your friends. I had actually went out with Jeremy one night in May of 2018. And we just went to regroup and hang out. We hadn't been out in a while. And at the time, I connected about the fact that I wanted to go to grad school, but I didn't want to pay all this money. And, I told him about certain life aspirations that I wanted. And he said, you should really check out this place called Peloton. It's this startup. It's this fitness startup. He said it's going to give you what you want as far as career growth, because it's a growing company. And also they'll pay for your education. So to be honest, all he had to say was pay for your education. That was the thing. That was it for me. And I was like, cool, I'm going to check it out. So what essentially happened was there was kind of a double-edged sword here on this end. And this is why I say hard work pays off. And also, if you know what you want, you will get there. I would enter Peloton and essentially have that opportunity to grow, but I'd be entering Peloton into a role that essentially I was overqualified for. So I was entering into a member support role. And at the time, I come out of college, I had done psychotherapy, so I had work experience and I had experience in general, but I had to essentially take a step back to make a couple of steps forward. And it was a decision that I definitely had to evaluate for a while, but I ended up doing it. I applied for Peloton that May of 2018 while I was still a children's aide. I found out I got into grad school probably 3 days after I applied to Peloton. And grad school starts in August. And ironically enough, Peloton got back to me and said I wouldn't start until August. So I started Peloton and graduate school literally at the same time.
Wow. Was that challenging or was it all right? Tell us about that.
So it was challenging the deeper I got into it. So at the time when I entered, I said I entered into a member support role. It was challenging intrinsically and extrinsically because internally I knew it wasn't something that I wanted to do. And it was challenging for me because sometimes I would look at myself and I wouldn't necessarily be comfortable with the fact of where I was working and what I was doing at the company.
What weren't you comfortable doing? The school part or the Peloton part?
Peloton part.
Because it was a role that you felt was a little bit less than what you were capable of doing?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Correct. So it was kind of some internal struggle with me, once again,
humbling experience. What were you doing in the job? Was it like admin kind of work or?
It was kind of like chat support. So like when you go on to Amazon and you're missing a package, you chat in and you say, where's my stuff? That was me. That was what I did. For
customer service. Yeah.
Right. And it was hard for a while, but I knew where I wanted to go. And once again, it was a company of growth. So probably by the time I got into my second year of graduate school, that was the hardest that was the hardest issue I had balancing both work and school. Because at that time, I was doing more to get into the role I'm in now. So at work, I had a challenge because I had to really step up and prove that I was able to do what I had to do professionally.
Yeah, talk to me about that. So I think that's something that a lot of, may be very helpful to folks that are in high school or in college and in the professional world. It's not always easy. We're in a world now, going back to my father, who's, retirement age. In his world, he's a baby boomer. In his world, a lot of folks, they join a corporation, they'd stay with that corporation for 30, 40 years. There might be a pension for them. For my generation, which is just a little bit older than yours, our generation very much on the, this start of, we don't work for one company. We jump. If we want to make a vertical move, if we want to move up the ladder, we get our core and we jump to this other company where they're going to give us a pay raise because for whatever reason, people don't really look at this. If you're in this role to move you up, we look at Evan over there. He's doing that. Let's bring him in beyond the person that's working down at this level because they're only working at this level. So it's I almost look at it almost as a unique thing that you were able to really move up at your place. So talk to us how you did that.
Absolutely. So that was a lot of, once again, patience and kind of a lot of, I'd say actually a lot of patience and a lot of hard work. Essentially what had happened was I had applied for a job that was internal in member support, which was essentially commercial support, where I was dealing with essentially all the commercial businesses like gyms and things like that had our bikes. So I was dealing with that. And essentially in that position, I said, well, what can I do to make myself shine, but still align with what the company's needs are and still move to the next level, which was I want to get on the recruiting team. So I think one of the big things were that I just had to put that shine on myself and really put in extra work. So what I did was I started an idea, which was called Peloton Hotel Finder, with my manager at the time, who essentially it's an app that we created, and it's a website where you can find our bike hotels. But it worked excellent. I had to do a lot of hard work to build it up and to get people involved, and essentially it was just making myself stand out. And once I had that, I bridged out to the recruiting team, or I bridged out to the people team, and started building my connections there with just informational interviews. So I would just put time on people's calendar to hear about their experiences at the company and hear about their experiences in general and what they think I should do, and what experience, what skills do they think I should have, what skill set they think I have.
Is that something that Peloton encouraged, or was that something you sort of took upon yourself?
That was something I took upon myself.
I think
Peloton is actually.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said that. I think that's amazing.
No.
What were you about to say about Peloton?
I was just about to say that Peloton has actually just started encouraging that now. So encouraging people to do that. But actually it was my own will to do the first ones. And the first ones were kind of informal. But how I actually learned how to formalize them and put my concise thoughts together to talk to these people and get their attention was actually through grad school. And that's why I say the higher education came in hand for me, because if I didn't have that way of learning and that way of communication, I don't think there's any way I would have been on that team right now.
So what was the lesson that they were teaching in grad school that sort of gave you that? I mean, because I would call that personal branding. I would call it definitely so not self-promotion, but your self-advocacy, advocating for yourself. And then having the ability to network that way, which is something that I'm still learning. You know, I'm 42 years old. I'm in a networking group, and it's about learning to better interface with people that you're meeting. So there's networking. You can go to a networking meetup or networking association meeting, or we're going to go out to the bar and somebody, and there's a way of like exchanging cards. But there's this deeper level of I'm going to set up a face-to-face with you now. It's a Zoom call, whatever. But tell me about yourself. How did you get where you were going? What's going on? What's your passion? What's your deep? Oh, I know so-and-so. Let's connect, which I imagine is something. Is that about right in terms of what some of these meetings were? So that's a big deal. So what in grad school was sort of leading you into that?
So it's funny you say that, because at Peloton, essentially, it was very much a buddy system when I entered Peloton. So essentially, if you did know this person, you're absolutely right. Like, you would literally get that job change. You would literally get that title change. For me, it was a bit different for a lot of reasons. But one of the main reasons was I wasn't that type of person. I wasn't the type of person to make friends with somebody just to get a job or just to be in that good circle. I was somebody who I wanted my work to talk for me. And then when I had that conversation with you, well, I can do X, Y, and Z. And this is why you should put me in ABC. So essentially what had happened was, when I was in college, I took a course in graduate school, I took a course called Organizational Relations. And it essentially was a class on business networking and how it's changed over the years with social media and how you have certain conversations. So I mentioned some key terms like informational interviews. And those are just essentially, they are interviews, but you're kind of asking, it's kind of like an interview that you're setting up where you're asking the candidate per se about their experience, and you kind of intrinsically find out how it's applicable to you. And I held about 6 or 7 of those before I got the position I had now, with a bunch of different people on the team. And the course itself just taught me how to approach those conversations and how to approach those conversations with different types of people, because not everybody's the same personality type. So that was probably one of the most useful classes I've ever had.
Yeah, I'm ready to sign up myself. It sounds good. So
cool.
Talk to me about you're getting towards the end of grad school, and what are you thinking about now as this degree is approaching, and talk to us and get to us because I know you graduated this year, right?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I'm going to say congratulations again on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Big deal. What were you thinking? What are you thinking now? And talk to us about what the future holds for you.
Absolutely. So right after December, once I finished my first semester, going into the second one, I said, I think I'm gonna be done with Peloton. I think I've got all the experience I need. At that time, I didn't transfer over to the new team yet. So I said, it's just kind of time for me to go on to something new. In graduate school, a lot of my professors wanted me to go into consulting, so management consulting, preferably. So go to Deloitte, apply for jobs there. They had good networking over there at EY. And that was the goal. And then a little thing called coronavirus happened in March. And actually, just to rewind from there, so what essentially happened was in January of 2020, I had asked one of my friends, is there any roles opening? Because it's a new year, are there any roles opening on your team? And she told me yes. And I applied for that role. I ended up getting that role on the tech recruiting team. And because of internal politics, I didn't start working in that position until March. And literally it was the week before COVID had everything shut down. It was the week
Right.
before Cuomo was like, stay home. And this is essentially the position I've been in since. And then I was in grad school during that time. So doing school and work from home. And it kind of I don't want to say it put a damper on anything really, because I do love my position. I do love the work that I'm doing, and it's getting more and more impactful every day. And I know because of recent events with George Floyd and some other things, I've been able to be impactful at my company in ways that I never would have thought I would. So it's worked in my favor in a different direction, not necessarily bad or good, just different for right now.
That's awesome. I want to hear more about that stuff. But before we go there, I want to talk about work that you're doing with SBI, the opportunity. So now you've had a little bit more free time to do this stuff. So I want to have that conversation. I want to go back to some of those pens on, the ways that you're able to give back and those lessons that you're able to bring into SBI. What is before I get into that, what does the future hold for you? You're at Peloton now. What are you kind of thinking about? I know you were talking about the management consultant thing. What's your current goal or plan, and how do you want to connect with people around that?
Absolutely. So right now, I'm actually working on a educational consulting firm. I'm trying to start that off the ground by next year. But right now, it's just something definitely in the beginning stages with a lot of my colleagues that we're just working on loosely. And it's kind of probably going to be a conglomerate of just providing opportunities to just inner city people who are trying to come up and who have gone to city schools and get them into tech startups like my own, to get them into these high companies, because a lot of these companies preach diversity around race and color, but not around educational background and things like this that still represent diversity. So that's where my attributes are going right now. We're trying to work on an app and we're trying to get that off the ground and running. But once again, COVID kind of stuck a knife through that. So we're moving slowly. But those are just some things off the top of my head.
I think it's interesting with because I know COVID's messing with everybody's plans, but stock at Peloton is up.
That's very true. Yes, sir. That's very true.
And you are employed, as I understand it.
Yes. Yes.
And,
yeah.
And I understand not only are you employed, but you got some pans on the fire, so to speak, in terms of things that you're cooking up, not only at Peloton, but for your personal life. So that sounds pretty darn good to me. So I want to stress the positive end of that. One of the things that's sort of interesting with Peloton, as I myself have picked up stock, full disclosure, that they made investments into different pieces of hardware. I think they picked up, what's the mirror
Oh no, we didn't do that. That was
Oh,
Lululemon
oh,
who picked up
Lululemon,
Mary.
but I think
Yeah,
there's some lateral stuff going on. Like the tech market is
we
like
do.
picking up these different
We
pieces.
do have. Yeah, we do have lateral stuff. You know, we also have our own like music record company that we own now because we got into our licensing issues. So now
That's
we
crazy.
have that under. Yeah, yeah. So they're definitely doing some big things. They are.
Hey, you're gonna have to help me because I have some stuff like things are popping up. You heard the theme song we put up for Sound Business, and
I like it.
you know the old man is definitely coming out, and me is like, you know, as pop-ups come up and say, "Oh, copyright," I'm like, "I paid for this." I'm like, "What's going on?" Oh man,
You're
it's
right.
frustrating. All right, so talk to us about what you're doing right now with SBI and what that's looking like.
Absolutely. So right now at SBI, I'm essentially putting together our social platforms, mainly Instagram, but just kind of trying to relaunch everything into the new couple of years. You know, there's a lot of things that have changed on social media in general. There's a lot of things that have changed with the program, and you know, we just want to bring the program into the new upcoming years. And I want to be that person to kind of help the visuals at least of what our program has done and what they're going to do in the forward future. So it's going well.
All right, so we're gonna do another interview because I feel like I messed up at the beginning of this thing, and
You good? You good?
I think we got a couple of videos coming. So because I want to help things. So what are things that we can do, and maybe hopefully somebody will watch this and give us some feedback. But what are things that people can do right now with give out the addresses and then that sort of stuff. But for Instagram, I don't know, talk to us about
Mhm.
the different channels and what people can do to help with that.
Definitely. Please, if you have any information, if you have any videos, pictures, anything, high quality stuff, just feel free to send it through. Just message it through Instagram. That's the channel I run right now. Message us if there's things that you want to see on the CCPI page as a whole. Right now, we're definitely posting a lot of things about the alumni connections. We're going to be posting a lot more things about content that is coming up later on for CCPI, which is a lot of good stuff. But that's the main thing, just sharing the page, giving us as much content as you can, and always giving us insight on how we can improve, because that's how we come up together.
All right, that's cool. I'm gonna throw up the Instagram page so people can see it. Right now, I see for the Instagram, it's SBI at Randolph, right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there's like one post up there, so I don't want people. There's already 119 followers, which is pretty good.
Hmm.
I don't want people to be frustrated because
Hi, A Thomas Project is wait, no.
Tell me your name and what
I
do
know
you do?
exactly what you're viewing too.
Take 3. Hi guys, how you doing? My name is Ulrich Thomas from A Thomas Project. I'm the director / choreographer.
all right, keep talking. Talk.
Is it good?
Yeah, I got the computer slow down and whatnot, but talk to us through how people should connect and what people should be doing for you.
Yeah, so just please share that page as much as possible. Please follow it. If you have alumni that would like to do alumni connection videos as much as this, please message that through. Any outreach is just extremely important. We're just really trying to get this program to the next level. And once again, I mean, realize the impact that it's had on my life. And I know a lot of other friends' lives. It's just something that we definitely need to keep going for our community and our people. And it's important. So please share it, follow it, add to it.
I appreciate your service in doing this, Evan. It's really great for you to be coming back and giving back. What are some things that you're looking to connect with other alumni on? I know that you got the app and works. People can probably reach out to you. What's the best way besides the Instagram handle at SBI Randolph to reach out to you right now?
Right now, you can reach out to me on Instagram as well. My individual handle, Evan Rob Johnson. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm on there a lot. So also Evan Robert Johnson, technical recruiting or global talent acquisition for Peloton. And just reach out to me. You know, if you have any questions, concerns, something that you want to see on the page, or just advice about experiences that I've had, please just let me know.
All right, very good. So I know that I got the links down in the description.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I think I'm dealing with some delays because of the hard rain that's coming down right now in this moment, because this is a live show. I want to encourage people to reach out to you. I also wanted to, while we're live, just talk about Ennis Bond, you know, because this is about alumni connection. So I know you were talking about management consulting and Deloitte and Ernst & Young. So Ennis Ba, class of, I want to say 2006, is somebody that has worked at Deloitte, is currently working at Ernst & Young, does the consulting thing. So he's somebody that I think you should definitely reach out and talk to. I was a attendee at his wedding. Very, very thankful for that opportunity. So he's somebody that I know well, and I know that he would be very receptive to you reaching out to him. So definitely take advantage of that. We have definitely a lot of folks that I have both interviewed and not. I was talking to you before we went on about somebody that works at A&E that, you know, doesn't want to interview because they're a little bit shy. So folks, if you're watching this, I don't care if you're shy or not, still reach out to folks, take advantage of the alumni network. If you feel comfortable with coming on the show and interviewing, we definitely want that. But regardless of that fact, in live or on video, let's get these alumni connections happening. Evan, thank you so much for doing this. If you can just speak to the, you know, what you want people to take away from this, hit it on that continuing education and giving back to SBI. I'll let you close this out.
Perfect. Just stay focused, man. I think that if you're in high school right now, if you're watching this, if you're still in the program, just stay focused and stay keyed in on what you want and realize the long-term value of what you want to do. Always realize the long term. And then on addition to that, just always get back to where you came from. Something helped you out. If something helped you get to where you got to right now, there are people watching you. Even if they haven't come to you and said they're watching you, there are people that do look up to you and do want to see you succeed so they can know what path they need to take. And every little bit of advocacy helps. So just stay focused, stay on the straight and narrow, and you'll be good. You'll find your way.
All right. Thank you so much, Evan. I am trying to maneuver my my computer here as it gives me the little spinny wheel of death. I thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you. I'm going to try to be slick in some kind of way here and do music if it'll cooperate with me, which I don't know that it is, but we will try. And just hang on for me, Evan.
No problem.